content over everything.
But this guy's a far left like a clown.
Anyone that doesn't agree is a fascist.
Right. So do you support? Do you understand the Great Replacement? You're live and talking
Yeah,
about
but I don't think it's happening here. I don't think there's the English population is going to be replaced or my minority.
The English
Don't
population
look at Hyde Park. Because Hyde Park is a place for people to come and talk, and every background is going to be here. But if you go outside,
if you want to talk
as
to
if
people,
it's
don't
not as
use
if
that.
it's not as if
If you want to speak
India's-
up here, speak without without
this is
putting
areas
that
cameras
in
everywhere.
somebody's face.
This cameras
You
everywhere.
That's why. Sorry.
No, you
We're
don't
digitally-
use that.
yeah.
If you want to talk to him, put
don't
that in
mind.
your pocket.
But thank
He
you for
don't
your
mind,
advice.
mate.
I have no problem.
Put that in
He has
your
no
pocket.
problem.
What I'm trying to say is, I
So
don't think
let me
there's-
help you here. So England right now is
Speak is called, not
86%
speak
white.
is called.
Yeah.
So in London, it's 60% white, 40% native.
Right.
So by simple
That's
linear
because they've all
mathematics,
gone to Spain, and they've all gone to
other way around.
But
they've all gone to India.
Okay, but simple linear mathematics shows you that the Great Replacement, as defined by making the natives a minority, it's happening.
But what you're not
it's evidenced
understanding,
by the
what you're not
data
understanding,
right
the whole concept of the European Union was to mix it up, and that's what they've done.
now. Right, and we don't want that.
That's what.
Why don't you want it? Why don't you want it?
Because I don't believe it reflects the state of
No,
nature.
but with all
Sorry?
due respect, the
does
fact,
not reflect the
with
state
all
of
due
nature.
respect,
Stay on nature.
one sec,
Define nature.
One sec. With all due respect, you are not even from here.
So what?
So
Are you black?
Let me finish.
Are you black?
Can I finish?
Absolutely.
What gives you the right to say that other people are not allowed to come here? What gives
He
you? I'm
didn't
talking
say
about you.
that. He
They
said-
may give him the right. I have no problem with that. Maybe he's British in English, but you have no right because you're an immigrant yourself. So now you come. Like my father came 60 years ago.
May I address
Let me
it?
finish. Yeah.
Okay.
My father came 60 years ago to this country as an immigrant. He's been here for 60 years.
Good man.
He cannot come and say now that I don't want any other people coming into this country. He came here.
Okay.
The same way you came here. So
I
how
understand, I
God
really
you-
understand your point.
Yeah.
Can I break
Sure,
that argument
sure.
down two different ways
Well,
and
answer
prove
the question. Don't waffle me.
Okay, I didn't criticize your waffly question. I'm trying to be respectful, not criticize my answer.
I can criticize what I want.
Me too then.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm okay with that.
So your argumentation set went along two axes. The first one is easy to break apart. It's the argument of attacking the message versus the messenger. Let me give you an example. You're not black. I'm not black. Are you against black slavery and the enslavement of black people?
Yeah.
Okay, but you're not black, so you have no authority to do so by your own reasoning.
What a
But it's human nature. Though. Human nature.
No. So the
Hello,
first
you're
bit of
talking
your
about two
argument-
separate topics.
No, I'm just
You're
breaking
talking
this
about
silly
my
argument
care
down,
for
which I've done
humanity.
years.
No,
Yeah.
you're talking about my care for humanity, and I'm talking about your right to stop someone immigrating to the country.
Yeah.
What's the logic?
It's not my right.
Why don't you compare apples and oranges?
It's not my right. I believe
I
it's-
care about black people. I care about elephants. I care about Hindu people. who are
I
in
care about
trouble.
English people.
So my point to you,
I care about English
but
people.
what-
The
Yeah,
same
but
way
it's
you
coming
care
out.
about
Like,
them.
it's coming out. You care about English
Yeah,
people. no
and I
problem.
care about
But it's
Somalian
coming out at the
people,
expense.
right?
It's time, champ.
What I'm
Just
trying to say,
science, right?
my
Always
point to
take
you,
turns.
my point to you is that you're trying to mix emotions with immigration. What are you talking about?
Yeah, because
what
emotion-
logic is that?
Okay, it's not that easy. So to address that, first of all, the great philosopher Blaise Pascal said, in the end, logic surrenders to emotion. Emotion is
Hello, cut
necessary.
all that, just get to the
Emotion
point.
is necessary to galvanize people's
you're
spirit.
trying to just-
Logic, data, and facts is not enough. Logic won't let you cry to arms. Logic won't make you storm the fort. Data won't make you
But
rise
you're-
up and die for your
Bro,
nation.
bro,
So emotions matter.
You're an immigrant yourself.
So what?
How
You're
do you-
not black.
How do you
You're
prevent?
not black. Do you see the
How
idiocy
do
of
you
your
prevent
Are you
someone?
trained in formal logic?
How are you preventing someone from coming
understand
into
the logical fallacy
You want to
you're
answer my
making.
question?
Okay, but
How-
you're not
what
answering
gives
mine.
you the right to say that some other person
But I'm
cannot
trying
come?
to answer
one
this
second,
question,
one
but you don't seem to
one
be able
second,
to
bro.
listen
I am-
or understand.
You can try
Can I
that little
interject
stuff.
for
It
one-
doesn't work with me.
Can I just-
Works with
either.
other-
Do you mind if I interject for 1 second? Yeah?
That's just a bit an
You keep saying to him, you're not
Been a
black.
while since.
One
You
second.
dance around
I just want to clarify something, if I may.
your
Yeah.
time,
You keep saying to him, you're not black. You're not black. You're not black.
Reasoning right now.
So I'm just saying, right? That it seems to me that your problems with black people and not with immigrants itself.
When do I say
Because
No,
you keep
black
saying you keep
No,
you
no,
keep-
no,
okay.
he-
Am I misunderstanding or
You're
something? I don't know.
misunderstanding, brother. I'm using this as reasoning
He
by
doesn't have a
analogy.
problem with black people.
I'm
He has a
using-
problem
So
with.
why does he keep
No,
saying
so he's
you're
try- so
not
he-
black? You're not
No,
black?
no.
Let me answer this question.
He has
to
a
me.
problem with
He's
Islamization
trying
of this
to answer
country.
my question. Yeah, the
He has a
question was
problem with the
addressed to me.
minorities.
Let me explain.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Let him answer the question.
He
Okay,
He doesn't.
Because what I'm doing is I'm
You like
exposing the
Indians?
logical
He favours the white
fallacy in
people
his reasoning.
over his own
So if you
tribe.
say the simple English, play the ball or play the man, if you attack a man and not a message,
What was his reason?
and his reasoning is saying, for example, who are you to speak for someone who is not you.
I didn't say that. Oh, no. See, mixing words. Let me remind you what I said. Let me remind you what I said.
Let's just take turns.
Let me remind you what I said
Can I
first.
finish my point?
I would
Just
like.
be
No, you
respectful,
can't.
guys.
You can't lie and.
So you want to interrupt and you don't want to take turns?
No, I want to remind you what you think I
thank you.
said.
No, that's okay.
You
But
told
I-
him
it'd
incorrect.
be much better
No.
you can correct me when I finish.
I said
Why
you
can't
are an immigrant
why can't
yourself.
you correct me when I finish?
You told me you
Yes.
came here when you were 2 months old.
But why can't you
I've not
correct me when
finished.
I'm finished?
2 months old is when you came
Watch,
here.
I won't interrupt him and let's see if he does the same.
I do the same. I will. You came here when you were 2 months old. I'm saying is what gives you the right to say people are not allowed in this country when you yourself have come into the country?
May I now answer this
now
question?
talk to him.
Right. So the reason I was explaining, hear his question very carefully. Let me repeat it for you. If he's not clear that I understood it earlier. He's saying if you were an immigrant who came here, what gives you the right, you as an individual, to complain about immigration?
Yeah, correct.
The reasoning Banaji says he explained for you to be something, you must be that thing to argue
No.
against it.
No.
Again, notice the interruption. I can argue against black slavery without being black.
So can I.
I can argue against immigration by being an immigrant. Why?
No, but you
Because I
can't
care about
stop-
the native people. Right? Do you
What
know the
kind of-
English
okay,
people?
why don't you answer me the question?
Yes.
You are an immigrant.
Yes.
If there was someone else stopping you from coming into the country, you wouldn't be here today.
Yes.
But you are here.
Yes,
You're
we
going
get
to
that.
eliminate your own
So what
self.
gives you the right for you to stop
Well,
someone
what
from coming
what
here?
bit difficult bit can't you understand?
Because you're saying the
No,
white
because
one second, you're saying the white sorry,
He's not
you're
engaging
saying
the
the white
question.
minority you're saying the white minority is reduced to by 60%. But you're Indian.
Yeah, they are.
Duh!
But don't you understand? I mean, you say duh.
You're one of the reasons why the minority.
He's trying to push racism
You're one of the
again.
reasons why the English are a minority.
I've spent 8-9 months arguing this.
You
Would
are
allow me-
one of the reasons why it's gone from
So
60
are you
to
gonna
40.
Are you going to just keep speaking at someone, or are you civilized enough to be able to take turns?
See, you can try that little stuff.
You keep
I've heard you
talking.
talk
Notice
before.
you keep talking.
Okay,
But you're not
okay, here's
taking
my
turns.
question
No,
for
no,
you.
no. You just
Here's
made
my
a-
question
no
for you.
question. You just made
You
another,
said it's gone
you
from-
just, no, but you just
it's
made
gone
another-
down by
but you just
40%.
made another statement. a set
You
of
are the
statements,
reason for
and then
that.
You're running about.
So explain to me why.
Okay, but would you stop and let
Yeah.
I be interrupted? Okay. So let me.
Brilliant.
Guess what? Do you
Thank
want to take
So,
some piss? He's
whose
got a white,
right
he's
is
got
it?
a white wife.
Whose right is it? Whose right is
He's
it
been
for
down
this
the white
land?
race.
Sorry?
Whose right is it for this land? It's not mine, and it's not yours.
Whose right is it for?
Yes, this land belongs to this man, and I don't care if you were born here or
What about
not.
Australia?
You're
What about
a guest in
Australia?
this land. You're a guest.
And so are you.
What about Australia?
Exactly. And I'm a guest on the side, despite being a citizen, on the side of the native people.
Bro,
Why is that so difficult for you to
your
understand?
statement was
Is that so
that,
difficult for you to understand?
the English
Why are you
people are
wrestling?
becoming a minority.
Australia.
Your statement was that the English people are becoming a minority, right?
are.
The great replacement.
But you are the reason.
Yes, I understand what you're saying, but you don't seem to understand what
What's
I'm
the
saying
logic? He could be standing there having this debate with me. I have no problem with that. But you're an Indian person, like me.
yes.
You're an Indian,
I mean, you keep repeating yourself.
and
It's
you
like
are
repeating
saying
your
that
point
the
doesn't make it better.
English population has gone down by
Correct,
40%,
yes.
and you are the reason because
Yes,
you immigrated
correct.
here.
People like me should not be here. They should
No,
decide.
no. Do you know what
You
it is
should
then?
decide. I mean, I know you find it
Bro,
funny.
this
Yeah.
is hilarious.
I mean, I'm glad you
You're
find it
standing
funny.
there as an immigrant, preventing immigrants from
I
coming
mean,
in,
you're going to get boring.
saying
if
that
you keep
this
repeating
man.
it.
What
You're
about
repeating yourself 4
Australia?
times. Have you got another point?
He's saying that English people are becoming a minority.
And do you know why people
He's
have
saying
got
the
such
English
a big
people are
problem
becoming a
with
minority,
replacement?
right?
Do you know why people have got such a big problem with replacement? Because of people like you
Listen
who
to
won't
what I'm
accept.
saying.
Yeah,
Listen.
they
You
want
won't
them in.
accept.
He's saying, I'm saying it's gone down. I agree with you.
I
But
accept
he's the
it.
reason.
This man- No, this What man, about like this man. Australia?
Is
Nobody'd
he
be bothered
white?
about replacement.
Is
if
he
people
white?
were
I'm
more
not
like
white.
him.
He looks a bit white,
I'm
but is he
not
white?
I'm not white.
He's
He's internally white maybe, but is he white?
Colour.
So
It's
that's
not
just
about colour.
idiocy.
It's about
come
decency
on, you're-
and it's about respect.
But what about Australia?
About
What happened to
mutual
Australia?
respect.
Have you
It's
understood-
about me
brother,
having a
have you
voice, you
understood
having a
what he's
voice.
saying?
No, you seem to think that people like you, yeah, you think I'm a racist. Yeah,
I don't think
because-
you're racist.
Hey, we didn't
When
say
did I
that.
say that?
Did we say that? No, you do. Anybody has
When-
a problem.
Oh,
You're
shit.
just being saying the
Wait,
racist
wait, one
part.
after
Bro, did I call you a
We
racist?
didn't say.
Did I call you a racist
Yeah.
today?
No, you weren't.
So I don't think you're a
We have live on
racist.
Tommy Robinson News. A lot of non-white people telling a white person what to do about white land.
I don't think you're a racist.
we haven't.
I've not heard any racist comments
All
from you.
I'm saying is if people were more like him, yeah, it can understand.
But he's the problem.
He's not the problem. How is he the
He
problem?
reduced the minority
How
of
is he
white
the
people,
problem?
right?
Happened in England.
No, the problem is people, right?
He's reduced the
Anytime
minority.
anybody
Email Powell
mentions
was right.
this,
Bro, you're not
they get-
understanding.
No, I
He
do
is saying
understand
that
you.
the white minority
I
have
do
reduced.
understand it. You seem seem to think
He
that
is
it's a big
replacing
threat
the
when
Englishman.
people say
As a you.
the white elephant in
You
the
are.
room.
Yeah, we should not be here.
No,
unless
I
you
want to be here.
But whether you want to,
Alright,
don't
what do you
you're
think
born
wrong.
here.
about
Doesn't
mixed
matter.
relationships?
You're an immigrant.
Doesn't matter
I
to you.
don't. You don't care?
No,
I don't
you're
care
not
about
good.
mixed
You said my
relationships,
country
mate. Why are you
India.
trying? You see what I mean? This is what
I
you're
was
trying
born here.
to
Can
do.
I ask you?
You're trying to turn me.
Padma Thingy है? Padma Thingy है?
Absolutely, why not?
पर अंग्रेजी को क्यों नहीं दे रहा? उसका अपना right. अंग्रेजी को right क्यों दे रहा?
वापस जाओ ना फिर.
मैं जाता आता all the time. I
Yeah,
go around on the
जाता
world fighting.
Can I ask a question? How would you self-identify
Funniest
yourself?
conversation.
Do you define yourself as an immigrant child?
I define myself
Yeah,
as a
you say this
Christian-
every week.
As a
I
Christian
can't get
servant
over
of
it.
empire.
So you don't.
I self-identify as a Christian servant
Okay, so
of
do
Her
you,
Majesty's
so you
empire.
don't acknowledge the fact. So you don't wait. So you don't.
Triggers all of them.
Wait.
You're not Indian.
Wait. 1 second.
You're not
One
Indian.
second.
You
Christian
can't-
servant of Her
ये
Majesty.
बेंचों को हिंदी नहीं मालूम है ये बेंचों को एक ही देश की भाषा नहीं मालूम है
So 1 second. One second. One second.
He's got Queen's English in it. What the hell's going on?
So you don't acknowledge yourself as an immigrant. You
Where's he
completely
run
rip
I
out.
am.
You rip out
I'm
the
a
roots.
citizen.
You rip out the roots.
No, I
of the
consider
fact that you're
myself a
immigrant.
guest to this native land. We are guests on the soil. You're a guest, I'm a
I-
guest, he's
okay,
a
okay.
guest.
We're all born here, mate. We're not guests.
I've come.
You're
I've
born
come.
here.
A lot of non-white people telling white people
I've come to a
what to do about
conclusion.
white land.
I've come to.
What the
Now
hell?
when Tommy Robinson
Hey,
news,
what do they do about
people
Australian
like
land?
Tommy
Australian
Robinson,
land.
is that Thompson
a lot of non-white people
What
telling
about
white people.
Australia?
Are you a
Yeah.
Tommy Robinson supporter?
Tommy Robinson's a bit left-wing to me, but yes, I support Tommy
He's
Robinson.
a bit left wing for you.
Well, I'm terribly right-wing, yeah. I'm extremely right-wing.
I know. Now I know you're a bit of a drama queen. This is all
He
an
is,
act.
he is,
Can
yeah.
I-
There's no still characteristics.
This is not you.
Can I ask that question again? I want to ask that question
Yeah,
again.
I like
don't
your
think-
question. Your question.
No, I don't think you asked the question. Answer the question. Yeah.
This guy's funny, man.
So, how would you define your identity? You have a problem against immigrants, right? So, how would you define your identity? Do you
I
consider yourself-
identify as a Christian reactionary nationalist. I believe I'm a servant. As a person right-wing, I'm a servant. I just to serve, first of all, Jesus Christ and all the Christian lands of which this is holy Christian land.
Are you a coconut?
My job is to serve it.
Do you consider
I
yourself?
don't know.
Are you a
I
coconut?
don't know. Are you a Chutia?
I'm asking you.
Are you a Chutia like Chinese?
Are you a
Are you
coconut?
live in Tommy Robin? Are you a Chutia?
Tell the audience what that means.
Yeah.
At least tell them.
So this is like done.
Are you a coconut?
You're a bit smarter than you.
No, I'm asking you,
You're a bit
honestly.
smarter than that.
So, do you consider yourself an immigrant in any way, shape, or form, given the fact that your parents
so
are immigrants?
as a Christian, so for example, I believe that Christendom is my only home. Just like a Muslim, any Muslim brothers, they would believe in the word of Allah, that there's no nation state. Your Ummah is Allah over the world.
Yeah, I get that,
in the
religion.
dunya.
Yeah, yeah.
The same way as a Christian, as a very right-wing Christian, we believe in Christendom over nation states. The nation state only arrived in the 30-year War. Only in 1648, there were no nation states before that.
So
Anyway,
you're not a nationalist.
I hear what you're
I'm a
saying.
Christian nationalist.
I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. So you're saying one aspect to your identity is that you're a faith-based man.
My first one is.
Okay, that's
So
but
you're
there's-
Christian.
so there's several aspects to identity, right? You've already given me the first point, which is obviously you're a Christian man.
I am.
What about culturally? How would you define yourself
I am.
culturally?
I love Britain because I'm half racial. I love Indian culture. I can speak multiple Indian languages. I love England, but my loyalty
Are you
is
Christian
to England.
by birth?
Loyalty to
Yes, South Indian Christians from St Thomas, original Christians.
Why is your loyalty to England and not to your
Because I
to
love
origin?
England and I love English culture and I love the English people. And it's my Christian duty of love. I love them more than the French.
Okay, what about your
I would die
Christian.
right
Why
to
don't you
them
love the
because-
Muslims same way?
Bro,
The
bro,
Christian told you
Because
to do
as
the
a
same
Christian,
thing.
as a Christian brother, I'm compelled by Christ to love every Muslim and save you from Islam.
Save us from Islam.
Yes,
yeah?
I'm compelled to defeat Islam,
by the way-
tasteful by the book and the sword.
Bro, one
always
second,
done.
one second. I want to stay on point. Hey,
You
wait.
always
Hey,
spoken,
not
and
really.
you're the one that I said, good Abdullahi, and you said Wallahi as well. You know that?
Of course, I'm respectful and polite to people, polite back to
So
me.
I'm very vigilant.
Yes,
still
but
you're
have no
not
mistake.
spoken,
Since the Crusades, our war since
you are closet
632,
racist, right?
since 632,
Can't even
our
have
war
a
against
conversation.
Islam is not the same against
yeah?
war
Okay,
against.
now can you point
I just find
camera
that
at your
bizarre.
flag
It's bizarre,
there?
very
I don't have to.
Jack
This is
Union.
Tommy Robinson News Live.
Okay,
the
you
entire
see the
nation.
Jack Union there, do you know what it stands for?
Yes.
The
What?
same people that claim put the Messiah on the cross, look, it's a cross with an X.
Yes, we offer
That's
you
what
the
you
book.
rep. And you say
book and the
you
sword.
follow Jesus. But
Yeah.
yeah, again, look
The
at
book-
the flag.
Look, I want to
already.
clarify something.
That is a cross.
Can I
No,
clarify?
that's the same people, the
Clarify.
Romans that put
this is-
claim to put Jesus on the cross. That's why you see a cross with an
Okay, that's
X.
a side.
Bro, just 1 second. I get what you're saying, right? I would understand, I would understand if you were saying, right? I support English culture. I support British values.
I
etc.
love English
Hear me out.
culture.
Let me finish. I would understand if you said all of that stuff, right? But then what I don't understand is, this is what I don't understand, right? You support English values, you support Christian values, you support all this sort of stuff, right? But then at the same time, it's coming at the expense of all your own particular culture and all the other cultures. That's what I don't get. Like, can't you support your own English culture and also support immigrant stuff because of the fact that your parent was also immigrant and you're a child of
doing well with
immigrant?
the questioning to the end. No, I don't support immigration or immigrants. I don't hate anyone. I can't. I want zero immigration. I want a very high quality gator who comes in here. I want to audit every chimp in this country.
Chimp.
Inshallah, when we're in power, we will measure all the people and we decide who stays and who goes home.
Okay.
With no hate in our heart. With no hate in our heart.
1 second.
Right?
Okay. I want to slow you down on just a couple things, right?
You take your time.
So you said chimps. Define a chimp.
We belong here. Yeah.
Genetically,
For the camera, just define it for the camera.
Yeah, so genetically we have evolved from chimps. If you sequence the DNA, we bifurcated from a common ancestor and homology 6.2 million years ago.
Okay.
We then branched from that, created all our human species. 150,000 years ago, we started the process of racial divergence. So I say everyone is a chimp because according to scientific homology and a common DNA record 6.2 million years ago,
I get it.
You don't believe it? Take all over your clothes.
No.
Sit in front of a mirror for 1 hour, look at yourself, and then watch some YouTube chimp monkeys, and you'll see what I mean.
I take your point. Okay. I want to clarify something else as well,
Yeah? Not a delusion. I'm fed from the power of God.
Okay.
Before the delusion, mate, it's power.
By the way, what's your name? Sorry, what's your name?
It's Ralph.
Ralph. Is that your full name or is it?
Yeah, Ralph's good, yeah.
Cool, all right.
Ralph the Englishman.
All right. There's another thing. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, there's another thing I want to clarify as well, right? I think it was about. Because obviously I've seen you here in the park a few times, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen some of your videos as well. And yeah, you seem
I
like.
apologize for that.
No, no, it's cool. Obviously, you seem like a well-spoken man. I'm speaking to you now. You seem well-spoken.
Yes.
But there is
Your
something.
questions are good questions.
No problem. Something I do want to hopefully get some clarification.
Absolutely, I can clarify.
So I think there was a snapshot of a video I watched, I think about a couple months ago, or more than that, and you used the word nigger.
Oh yeah.
So can you explain the context and why you said it before?
You used it today as well.
Okay, cool. All right.
The camera right.
Let me explain. I just want to, obviously, I want to know the context, why you said it before I make a judgment. So explain.
Absolutely. So we in the political right are fighting a long war against the left. So we need to understand the intellectual of the structures of the left. So if you look at the Marxist structures of the left that permeated the West in the 60s, there are five pillars of their axes of what they consider oppression. Those 5 pillars in order chronologically are racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, and Islamophobia. The doctrine of the left is, if I disagree with you in a racial term, you're racist. If I disagree with the female term, I'm sexist. We in the far right are going to smash that narrative by puncturing the Overton window right, by looking at those concepts and replacing them. So when I use the word nigger, if I'm sexist, I'm doing so as satire to point out the fact that this mimetic programming of the left is what we intellectually, and I represent the intellectual side of the far right, we want to structurally disengage and deconstruct.
All right, let me see if I understood what you said, right? Wait.
In 2020, to answer him in one line, I'm going to run a campaign here calling Make Casual Racism Fun Again.
Okay, one second, please. So, but do you not fear, I mean, if I understood you correctly, you're saying that what you're trying to do is you're trying to break the narrative in some sort of ways,
yes.
the leftist narrative, which I guess in some ways your perspective or the far right perspective is that that they try to shut down any sort of dialogue or discussion because they feel like, you know, everything has to be politically correct, or they accuse you of being racist.
So you're saying,
you're saying that in order to just completely
annihilate it.
You're saying to create. But I don't understand what's the point.
Let me help you why.
I don't
Why
get
did
why.
racism come about? What is the word racism? Where did it show up? So if you look at the etymology of the word racism, it only emerges as in 1930, attributable to a famous book by Trotsky. If you put the Engram view in Google, the use of the word racism, it's flat till the 1930s, and it comes in this left-wing concept. Where did Trotsky get it from? If you've read the Western canon as well as I have, and no doubt you have, then you realize it comes from Marx. And Marx gets it from Hegel. And because Hegel sees the notion of a dialectic of two opposing forces as hegemony. He sees A versus B not as natural, but he sees it as oppression. 1848, Karl Marx writes the manifesto where he says anything that is difference is wrong, anything that is difference is oppression, any difference between races is therefore, drum roll, racism. We in the right go back to Hegel and then we go to Schopenhauer and we say no. Difference between races, DNA, genes, phenotypes, cultures, societies are the pivoting organization principle of the right. We see difference is good, difference is healthy, and the left-wing narrative saying because a white guy looks at a black guy and says something is racist.
So you're trying to redefine it. You're
to
trying
answer your question, the word nigger epitomizing this intellectual mimetic space as the high point of this. I'm going to take that high point and I'm going to destroy it. In the name of my movement.
1 second, bro.
I'm going to
Are you
destroy
trying
it.
to undo the civil rights program?
Absolutely.
Are you trying to undo the civil rights
Absolutely, yeah. All of it.
You want to get rid of political correctness, basically.
One second.
I think it is a bit too political.
All right, so one second. So essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to redefine what racism is. In the common working definition of racism is you're trying to redefine it based on the context of history and how it was defined.
We're
You're trying to
removing the notion that because a race looks at another race as different,
Okay, cool.
that the one class gets to call the other class. I'm using left-wing documentation now.
All right, cool.
And call that narrative oppression.
what does-
therefore racism.
Okay.
I'm going to say therefore I am a racist.
Don't you think that your approach, right? Your approach. I mean, if this is by the way, I just want to before I even go into that, I just want to say, is this like a common sort of a common belief, a common approach amongst the far right that they all have this idea?
Okay, I represent the top far right of the political compass. So fascists and some are very left wing compared to me. I believe in the neo-Iraqi absolute moral. So at the vanguard, there are very few of us. So we start a movement like around Stanford at the turn of 1997, 98. Our movement's job is to look further ahead of society, 30, 40 years, and pull all the right wing closer to us. We are idealists. Okay. We are going to come through that window and point you to where you will come to us.
Okay.
So my job, literally, physically here, is to say, you can't say the word nigger, I'm going to call everyone a nigger, and I want you to call me a nigger, now what?
No, because that's not the approach I'm taking, you understand? You have your approach.
I'm not saying you should, brother.
No.
I meant that as a referral.
Cool. What I was going to say actually, but yeah, I just want...
No problem.
I just wanted to ask, right?
Shoot. I'm here to answer questions from the mythical far right you never meet, mate.
What's the approach of the KKK? Are they far right?
The KKK were a cultural movement in the 60s at the end of the Civil War problem. They're irrelevant to the movement today.
Good Christian boys.
Most of the new
They're
right
good Christian boys, right?
they weren't really true Christians either, and I'm a Christian. But the real intellectual movement for the right has been coming out of Europe and then heading to the United States.
Was Hitler far right?
Hitler was far right, but not a Christian.
All right, I want to get back. I remember what I was going to say now, right? Don't you think...
That was his mistake. If he'd been a Christian, he would have done a lot better.
Then what would he have done?
He would have built a proper European empire for Christ.
All right, cool. I remember what I was going to say, right? So you had this approach, and hopefully you made it clear to the camera, right, on what your approach is. But I just want to say, right, don't you think that your approach is very dangerous? It could escalate. I mean, in the sense that what you're trying to do is, I mean, you're an intelligent guy, right? And you can see you're flexible enough to understand that this is more of a political stance, right?
It's a war.
A political. All right.
I'm going to say the war.
Okay, cool. But don't you think, right? Don't you feel that your approach to racism, even if it's politically motivated, could encourage other people where
to be more racist,
yes. And return back to the times, the dark ages, where violence is enacted on the streets because you're a black man, and that could be because of the fact that you had decided this idea that okay, what we want to do is we want to break the narrative because we're trying to shut down the left.
No, because you're going to destroy the left.
You want to destroy the left, but the way to do it is the first step you've made is obviously you give 5 steps. You're a Marxist, whatever, right? You give 5 steps. One of them is racism, and this idea. What we want to do is we want to break down what racism means in the common world, and to do that, you're gonna start dishing out the word nigger or packing or whatever. And please, so I understand. And okay, cool. You said that. So I don't understand. You see, you wanna. I'm saying that this, in my from what I take from what you've understood, my belief is that it's a very dangerous road where you're going. Very dangerous road to the extent. Wait. To the extent that if you feel like, okay, what I'm gonna call a black man on the street. I mean, look, for example, if what you just said, this very dangerous thing, what you just mentioned right now,
I'm
if
sorry,
that
can we
becomes
just get to close
mainstream,
the point,
if
yeah?
that comes mainstream,
Your point is that they might be violent. So let me tell you the answer to
exactly.
that.
So-
No, I'll tell you why I do it. When we move people right, we need to return to a state of nature which lets people be proud of who they are grounded in nature. Ethnicity and race is fundamental to that. So when you look at boys, especially young boys, as they move through this pipeline, what we call white pilling, there's 3 stages. You're either deracinated, you're like a liberal, you don't care about race, or you're racinated, you're suddenly racially self-conscious, and ultimately you become hyper-racinated. This exercise job is to take the majority of young white males of breeding age and women to re-wake up to their white consciousness, their white well-being, and from that
feel
doesn't
good
imply
about who they are.
answer in a second. And that doesn't imply that means they get up and start going all like hammer at Jack Boots. What it does is they wake up, look around this world, and decide to act for white well-being in their own best.
you speak for the white race.
I speak for every Christian soul on this planet.
What if it's a black
For the white race.
I'm
You're
not
talking
white.
about white consciousness. You speak for the white race.
Why the white person? Who's in the white? Your question is a good one. I support every. I want to make African countries nationalistic and strong and proud to be. So they don't come here. They come there. I want each country to have. I want exactly each country to have the right to determine who lives with them. So I want the Vietnamese, I want the Indians to say no. We don't want a lot of black people running around Mumbai.
All right.
I want the Indian people to choose that. If the Indian people say I want a lot of black people to come
How
on
do you
Mumbai,
define
I want the
it?
Indians.
How do you define an Indian? Because you got Hindu, Muslim, Buddhist, Christian, Jew. Everyone's there.
I'm a
Indian.
nationalist. I believe,
doesn't matter.
I believe India belongs to the Hindu
So what about
The
a
Muslims
black?
should be
What about
repelled.
what about a Muslim is not a that's not nationalism, it's religion.
Yeah, I'd have them subjugated and removed from India.
He believes in
Okay,
Hindus.
cool.
only
Let's get back to
Hindus.
the
No,
point.
hold on.
And millions of my RSS ships in at Boysby, right behind me.
Let me listen to me carefully. So you're saying that you want the Indian people to
Are you
decide.
Hindu, sir?
No, you want the Indian people. You're a nationalist.
Yeah. For all
What's
nations.
nationalism got to do with religion?
Do you know what nation means?
I'm asking you. What does nationalism have to do with religion?
Because a nation state, I'll tell you why. Because the nation state is defined by nationalism, which means the right of a people for their own self-government. Hear me out.
Okay.
In a place. But what does it mean to be yourself in a place? What does it mean to be?
So who is the Hindu nationalist?
No, but what is being? Being is living, eating, sleeping, and faith is a part of being. So if a nation decides their faith is this, if the Somalis decide in Somaliland their faith is going to be
But-
Islam, they have the right to their faith.
But
in their
600
land.
years ago it would have been different.
Cool. It changes. Yes.
Okay, cool,
What
cool.
about
Can I?
Australia?
all right.
British in Australia.
Your colonial narrative as an Indian chap who doesn't speak Indian is no use to me.
Bro.
I affectionately call him, I'm not even
Yeah, I
I
know.
affectionally call I'm an Indian hobbit.
All right, cool.
So I'm an Indian hobbit.
We call him Patel.
Yeah, he's deracinated. He can't speak his own languages, and he comes here and he wants to let everyone into English
He's
now.
like a
All right,
coconut.
mate. You have no credibility, mate.
I'm asking you a question.
like it
So
anyway.
someone
Another word
600
is
years ago, the culture and stuff was different here.
Of course.
1,000 years ago, it was different. So how do you decide who is the original person to decide what is English, what is not?
Yeah, he said Hindus.
Because they're quite slow moving. So if you look at
No,
the
but
genetic-
even if you look at Hinduism is a collection of
Yeah, we're outside
hundreds
it.
of religions.
In his philosophy,
Yeah, but to
we're
answer your question
outside
very
it.
simply, if you look at the intergenerational
Muslim invasion.
the way humans work, it takes 3 generations before you effectively lose your non-written record culturally. You can't remember your.
And where did you get that one from?
Bear with me a second, please. So if you look at that, your cultural record doesn't transmit. A few questions like you don't know what your great-great-grandfather's names or what they did in the morning.
I do, but yeah.
Or your great-great-great. I wanted to go too far before you don't.
Yeah,
have it.
correct.
Okay. So you have a generational window.
Correct.
And then you have a DNA record. So the last ice age, 11,000 years ago, the sheets weren't back. If you look at these European nations, they have 2 clusters, R1A, R1B, 2 types of white people who moved over here and slowly formed their culture and their practice. I could show up tomorrow, you could be born here, but you're not English.
But
you could
bro!
become culturally English.
Neither are you!
The
But you
English
keep
are
that
not
as a
pure
silly
though.
argument.
The
I'm
English are
talking
not
about the
pure.
argument.
Different
Get it?
culture.
You're standing there representing the whiteness
Yeah,
of
but
this
you
country.
just lose yourself
and
when you do that. You don't need to take me out of it. Keep to the argumentation, right? So
Okay,
keep
cool.
the argumentation.
I want to get back to the point we were
Yeah,
talking
the
about.
point
right?
is more interesting to
Alright,
me. I'm not that interesting. I'm just a servant of England.
You said something about white consciousness, right? Yeah.
Yeah, English people are not. English people are a mixture of
Yeah,
different
hello.
tribes, right?
You said something about white consciousness.
Just a second. I'm desperately out of one cigarettes. Who's got a cigarette? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
you said something about white consciousness, right? I just want to know, like, like you're saying all of this is an attempt, in summary, if I understood, because some of it I forgot, right? But you're saying
raise white consciousness.
White consciousness, right? So, like, what I don't understand is, do you speak for the white race? Why is this all of this done to? Like you're
I can answer very quickly.
Yeah,
I can answer very quickly. I'll tell you why. The answer is in the data. I'm a theoretical computer scientist, so I lived my entire life in data. The biggest populations things we need to understand is that the world's population stabilizes at 2050 and growth is killed. What does the board look like at 2050? There are 10 billion chimps, 55% are in Asia, 2 billion will be the saturation point in Africa. White guys have only 850 million people left.
All right, that's
so 8% of the whole table, the final table is white.
So they're not breeding.
Yeah, because they're not breeding, their replacement rate is down.
Why they're
But
not
worse
breeding?
than
Why they're not breeding?
let's break this out in a second. But worse than that, unlike the ethno states like India and China, there's no big immigration debate in India. No one comes into an ethno state like India. Sub-Saharan Africa and the
you're
third
wrong
world
there.
are
Have you
racing here.
Have you spoken
You're
to white
wrong
people?
there.
Have you spoken to white people? Have you spoken to white people?
Have I spoken
Yeah,
to
'cause
white
obviously,
people?
yeah,
What a crazy
yeah.
question. What do you mean?
No, it's not a crazy question because all of this is
Most of my friends are white,
Let me
yeah.
finish. Like,
Surprise, surprise.
no. Because you're saying that you're basically saying that you know what's best for the white people, right?
Yeah.
And
I'm
all
not saying I know best.
You know
I'm
what's best for
serving
the
a
white
movement.
people.
I'm
But I
serving
want
a
to hear
movement.
I want to hear his opinion, and if it's in line with your opinion,
Absolutely, yeah.
right? Because it might be that all of these talk about racism and
Actually,
all of
when you
this
get
is
his opinion,
motivated.
I'm going to dash get a cigarette from that trouble. You tell him what you
Yeah,
think.
yeah,
Ask an
I do
Englishman.
agree with what
I'm
you
a
said,
servant of England. He's an Englishman. Ask an Englishman. I'm back.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
No, go on, ask me the question.
All right, cool. So he's saying that, obviously it's on camera, right? But he's saying that racism, he's justifying racism in the sense that because there's a leftist narrative in his view, he believes that, you know, there's a tendency.
There is a leftist narrative.
There's a leftist narrative and a tendency to basically shut down the political debate or any debate by accusing,
calling people racist.
By calling people racist. So what his approach is saying, right, is that he wants to, you know, dash out the most offensive terms, rape, nigger, whatever it is.
Come take over everything from your humanity.
Man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV.
Come to the checkpoint.
Listen.
And I told him when he's walking off. But after just you see, okay guys, so basically what we're doing here, we're talking about, we was just showing to our friend who's a Zionist, he's a Jewish, he claims to be a Zionist, yeah. So we just showed him a video of a man coming to a Palestinian checkpoint and IDF soldiers are telling him to go back. So he's like, okay, I'll go back. So he turns his back and he's walking back. And as he's walking back, maybe you can hear it here, yeah? He gets shot. Listen.